Aljo's never been in a fight against a superstar. Now, Sugar, he's a star. He's a big name. And I think when Aljamain walked in there, and he walked in the ring and heard the people boo him, the fuck Aljo chant, I really think that got to Aljamain. And for Sugar, on the other hand, I think it made him more comfortable in that moment. And I think Aljamain kind of choked in that moment, and he kind of got terrified and couldn't live up to it. As much as that he's been, I think that was his 4th title fight. And I mean, it was going to be his 10th fight without losing. I just don't think he's fought somebody at that star level. And I really think that's what happened. I think he got choked up. And I think that's why he changed up his game plan. And that it could have cost him, it kind of cost him the belt if that's what happened. But that's my assumption. I think that's what happened. Hey guys, welcome to the False Line Podcast here with episode 155. Sugar Sean O'Malley, man, he fucking did it. He fucking got the knockout like he said he would. He said he was going to find the chin, and he did. This is a episode of the recap of UFC 292. Just talk a little bit about the fights, what I thought, what's next. Things like that, right? So let's talk about a little bit, before the fight. My thoughts before the fight. Really just about, the Cheeto fight that I want to talk about, Ian Garry's fight, Weili's fight, and then Sugar Sean's fight, right? So a little bit about all the fights. The event was amazing. I wasn't too excited for the fight card, to be honest with you. I was like, man, there's not too many exciting fights they were, but the names weren't exciting. This is why I love the UFC. Cheeto fight, good fight against Pedro Munhoz. Ian Garry versus Magny, the drama was there. Ian's a savage. Weili versus Amanda. Weili's a dominant force. Sugar Sean, he showed us what he's capable of and that he is worthy of being a champion. Straight up. So, kudos to the people who won. The event, like I said, the event was awesome. But let's talk about a little bit about Cheeto. Don't got too much to say, but if he gets lucky, he will get a free title shot for being Cheeto Vera. Right place, right time. Getting a stoppage on Sugar Sean O'Malley, the only stoppage that Sugar Sean O'Malley has. So I guess, he did good, though. He had a good fight against Pedro. Nothing too exciting, like Sugar Sean says, but he got the W, pretty good win, so good for him. And then we had Ian Garry versus Magny. That fight was good, man. Like for Ian to go in there and to do that to Magny, who always puts out a good fight. In my opinion, I like watching Neil fight. He fights good. He always figures out a way, right? And Ian just went in there and abused his leg, abused him. And it was ruthless. It was mean. It was nasty. And then, the build up to the fight too, people talking about Ian in an ugly way, like why is he talking so much shit? Why is he trying to be like Connor? Somebody get this guy out of here, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. And then he goes out and shuts everybody up. He talks his shit. He flicks Ian off when the fight's over. There's still drama, bad blood there. And, it's not the most pleasant thing to say, but it's definitely exciting to see. And for him to put out the performance, I'm like, man, And then he calls out Stephen Thompson. So I don't think Stephen Thompson stands a chance with someone like Ian Garry, but I like how Ian is definitely being calculated about who he fights next. Not trying to jump steps or jump hoops or take shortcuts. He's taking his time, building himself up, building his confidence up. And, he's just trying to jump the next hoop or get over the next, obstacle that's in his way to get to a championship fight, right? So, Stephen Thompson, that fight definitely needs to happen, I think, and I hope it does. But, dude, he fought so good, and he looked scary. Like, he looked real good and real scary. So, kudos to him. Shout out to him. And he did a good fight. He did the fight that he needed to do. Now, let's talk about Weili a little bit and Amanda Lemos. I thought that fight was gonna be very close. I thought it was gonna be a close fight. Just because Lemos, she's just so like snappy, so just and Weili, obviously, she's just like all around, real good at everything. Striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, you name it, on the top, on the ground, like she's good everywhere. Lemos clearly got the knockout power for being I want to say strawweight, 115. She has that knockout power, and I thought she was gonna be a threat to Weili, and Weili went in there and just smothered her and beat her up. From the moment, from the start, that leg kick, when she read that leg kick that was coming at her, and to throw that kick and throw it to the ground. After that was pure domination, almost 15 minutes of ground time. And I get a lot of shit for talking about, Khabib and Islam for, just going on there, taking it to the ground, this and that. But there's a difference, between that and what, in my opinion, what Weili did, taking it to the ground. It wasn't boring, like she wasn't just holding on. Like she was holding on, moving around, ground and pounding a little bit, switch positions, ground and pound some more, look for a submission, moving around again, just showing her different things versus just being in one spot, holding on for dear life. So if you go in there and do that, like, I'm just like, bruh, like that's crazy. Like that's impressive. That's good. Especially when you're going in there grounding and pounding and looking for different subs. It's impressive. It's really, it's good, So I thought like the first round was really competitive. Second round came, I was like, tough round for Lemos. Then third round came and did not look any better. Fourth round came and I thought it was like, okay, she might be able to sneak a punch in or two to slow down Weili, which Weili did slow down. But I mean, Weili's just too much. She came in the fifth round and just came back and dominated again. And she won that fight with no doubts at all. And what's exciting for Weili is, she puts out a performance that way, and she used to be a champ and now she's a champ again, defending her title for the first time, this title run or title reign that she has. And again, I said this last episode or one of the episodes, She what was I gonna say? Fuck. Oh, the UFC, right? The UFC doesn't have a face in the women's division or the women's whatever, because Amanda Nunes retired, walked away from the sport. And for Weili, I know she's 115. She might have to jump up a weight class, but I think she can be the next face, for the women's division. And I don't see how or who can beat her. There's a lot of good opponents out there, I'm sure. Like, don't know the first name, but last name is Suarez. And then there's Alexa Grasso and Holly Holmes. So who knows who she will fight. But if she keeps it up, I mean, she's going to be one of the best. She's going to be the best women's fighter. And she's going to be the face for the women's, hopefully. And I mean, she looked like an animal out there. It was crazy. So, I mean, just go for it, and hopefully that the UFC takes care of her and she has a good future in the UFC as a champion as well. But yeah, I mean, she looked fucking great. And for Amanda, I mean, I would like to see her fight Suarez or what's the other, Jessica Andrade, whoever Suarez just beat that one. That would be a good fight, I think. So yeah. Now I'm trying to think of anything before I get into the main event. No, the main event. Let's talk about Sugar Sean and Aljamain Sterling. Before the fight, I know I had Sterling to win, but I've been a Sugar Sean, and I hate that I'm saying it like this, but I've been a Sugar Sean fan for a minute. I didn't think it was his time yet. I really didn't, and I was just like, man, like, what he did is what everybody knew how was the only way he could have won. And that was the only way he could have won. The only way he would have won is by knockout, right? So before the fight, I was just thinking about these things. I was just like, man, like, it's not Sugar Sean's time yet. Then I was like, Aljo gets to train with Marab, who's a fucking animal, who's a beast. I was like, and Aljo has beaten Henry, has beaten TJ, Peter Yan twice or once. I mean, so, Aljo just has the resume. He can back it up, right? And Sugar Sean, I mean, from my understanding, his last, besides Peter Yan, he hasn't fought anyone with that's up there in the ranks or who has a winning record. I want to say it was only Peter Yan. And Sugar Sean was getting a lot of shit for it. Like, he's not ready. He, you're going to go out there and get taken to the ground, this and that. And I mean, that's what I thought. I was like, man, if Sugar Sean can keep it on the ground as much as he can, obviously he'll be able to do something. And, just talk about the fight itself. Sugar Sean comes out there, and we all looked at him. We all thought he was a little nervous. He even came out and said he looked a little nervous, or he was a little nervous. But, when they got in there and looked at each other before Bruce Buffer pronounced their names, they're just looking at each other like, bro, I'm in this. And Sugar did that, and I think he just had it in him. And I really think that Aljo, it was a big moment. It was a big fight. But Aljo's never been in a fight against a superstar. Against Peter Yan, the fan base is not really there for either of those guys, right? Against TJ, again, not really. We're really rooting against Aljamain at that fight. Nobody really likes Henry, and again, nobody's really convinced about Aljamain. So the fan base was just like, oh, let's go Henry. And Henry's mad annoying. But we wanted him to win because we don't like Aljo. Now, Sugar, he's a star. He's like big. He's a big name. And I think when Aljamain walked in there, and he walked in the ring and heard the people boo him, the cheers, the fuck Aljo chant, I really think that got to Sugar. To Aljamain. I really think that got to Aljamain. And for Sugar, on the other hand, I think it made him more comfortable in that moment. And I think Aljamain kind of choked in that moment, and he kind of got terrified and couldn't live up to it. As much as that he's been, I think that was his 4th title fight, and it was going to be his 10th fight without losing. I just don't think he's fought somebody at that star level, and I really think that's what happened. I think he got choked up, and I think that's why he changed up his game plan, and it could have cost him. It kind of cost him the belt if that's what happened, but that's my assumption. I think that's what happened. Not taking anything from Sugar, but like I said, Sugar looked in there. He looked nervous, but then he looked locked in, and dude, I told my girl, I was like, he's gonna do that across the body. Like, he's just gonna take him out. Al's just gonna make a mistake, and he's gonna just get him if that was to happen. And I didn't think it was going to happen so soon. It was the second round. They didn't. The first round was close because they rarely did anything to each other. They barely threw anything, just feeling each other out. I bet total strikes fight thrown on that fight was like no more than 50 mixed together. And Aljo didn't try one take. He tried one takedown at the end of the first round, which was, I was a little surprised that he did it that late. I would have thought he would have shot it a little, like 2 minutes in or something like that. But Sugar Sean was in there throwing feints, and Aljo kept falling for them, and he kept flinching too hard, like too responsive, and like I said, just too tense. And he was not looking loose in there, and I think he kind of got caught up in that moment. And second round comes, as soon as he lunges, we have all seen the Conor replay. It's just kind of like, I've seen this before. In a split second, that's in my head. It's like, I've seen this before, and boom. Lights are out. I really think it was an early stoppage. I do think they stopped it a little too early. I think the fight could have kept going. I did not see Aljamain recovering himself, though. I think it was going to be over, in a few more seconds. If Sugar could have kept teeing off. I just think it was over. Aljo was out of it, and I think Sugar, didn't. Sugar would have kept going. But I was a little surprised on how Sugar kind of approached it, because this happened with Peter Yan, and I hate to say this about Sugar because he did really, really good. But when he stunned Peter Yan, he got caught a few seconds later. Like, he didn't, in my opinion, he didn't capitalize on that. Against Aljamain Sterling, he took him to the ground. He drops him, and he doesn't put him out right away like that, right? When usually, like, not Aljamain, Izzy, Dustin to Conor, Conor to Aljo, these finishes, I mean, to me, Sugar had to like really put him out, you know, and he didn't capitalize that against Peter, and he didn't capitalize that against Aljo, because Aljo was still there, you know. It could have stopped. It could have been a little bit longer, but it took Sugar Sean O'Malley a few more shots to try and land. I don't know if he got too excited, or he was tired, or he didn't know how to react, or didn't want to jump into it. But I think he didn't fully capitalize on putting out Aljo, and I wish we would have seen like a strong finish. Don't get me wrong, the take, I mean, to knock him down like that, I mean, it was impressive, but it would have been fucking like, I put him out completely, where it's like, stop this fight, because like I said, Aljo was still moving, and he did this against Henry, you know, where he's on the ground like this. So I mean, you know, it's tough, but I think there was no recovery for Aljo. I think the stoppage was fine. I would have liked it to keep going just to see what would have happened. But, I mean, it was a good call. It is what it is, right? So, you know, what's next, right? Is there a rematch? I think there's no doubt in my mind that Aljo deserves a rematch no matter what. Right away, instant rematch. They should have wrote it up in the contract. Not sure why they didn't, if they didn't. But, I mean, what Aljo has done to beat who is it? I'm so sorry. He beat Corey Sandhagen. He's beat Peter Yan. He's beat Henry Cejudo. He's beat TJ Dillashaw. I'm not sure who else he's beaten, but I'm sure it's impressive. And for Sugar Sean to only have a win over Peter Yan, and now he's a champion. I mean, Aljo more than anything deserves a rematch. Even if he got knocked out the way he did, I mean, he deserves a rematch just because who he is in the division. And they have to give it to him. In my opinion, they got to. Like, why wouldn't you give that rematch to Aljo? It doesn't make sense to me. I know the UFC wants Sugar Sean O'Malley to be the champion, but Sugar Sean O'Malley is the champion now, and he has a big target on his back, and you can't protect him like always, right? And I'm not saying the UFC is, but if they were, you can't. And I really hope Aljo gets his rematch. Like I said, he deserves it. He deserves a rematch just for his title reign and for who he is. And he's a champion. He needs to get deserved as a UFC champion for being the best bantamweight in UFC history, you know, and he deserves a title shot. I know a lot of people might think that, oh, he needs a win, get his confidence back, and maybe the rematch. But if I was Aljo, I would want that shit right back in December. There's no doubt, right? Now, for Sugar, on the other hand, I mean, I'm a little upset how some of the things that he's saying as far as calling out people, you know, and the comment that he made about Aljo wanting a rematch. I think that, like, for him to say next question on Aljo and saying that I thought he was moving up, I mean, it's like he doesn't want to deal with Aljo because he knows he can be trouble. It's a hard fight against Aljo. There's no doubt about that. And it made it seem like Sugar doesn't want to go through that pressure again, you know. But it just does. It won't get any easier as a champion. It just won't, you know. And I know I speak out of a fan perspective, whatever. But you know, for a reporter or a journalist to ask you, you know, about Aljo getting a rematch as a champion, I'm like, bring it on, baby. Like, let's go. Like, run it back. I'm the champion. I need to defend my title, and I want to be the best, you know, whatever. Or I just want to defend my belt. Like, really, really defend that title. Don't just be champion and you know, start being greedy. You know, you were hungry to be a champion. You wanted your title shot, and you got your title shot a little too fast, you know. But hey, you got it. You won fair and square. And I think as a champion, you need to act like a champion, and you need to give real contenders their title shots. And there's no better person besides Aljo. It's Aljo and then Merab. And I don't understand why Sean O'Malley's talking about fighting Gervonta. I know he wants to fight Gervonta. I know he wants to be a star. I know he wants a big payday. But, dude, and I feel like Sugar Sean wants this fight now because he's a UFC champion. Because the moment Sugar Sean's not the UFC champion, his stock or Sugar Sean, the brand or the name himself, it's not worth as much as a champion versus just a number 2 or number 3 ranked guy. So I get why Sean wants to fight Gervonta now, because maybe he knows that he can't defend the title And I'm not saying that he came, but maybe that's why he's saying that. But dude, Sugar Sean needs to stay in the UFC, defend his title. He doesn't need to look outside of the sport or outside the division. I give Islam a hard time, and I'm going to be the same way with Sugar. Sugar Sean needs to stay in his division. He needs to fight Aljo again. He needs to fight Marab. He needs to fight Henry Cejudo. He needs to fight Cheeto Vera. Like, that's who Cheeto, I mean, that's who Sugar Sean, that's what he should be saying, and that's who he should be. He should be, damn, I can't speak. That's who he should be calling out, if I'm being honest, because I mean, I understand you just wanted the UFC, you're UFC champion, but dude, you know, I just hope he doesn't turn or change or he is trying to like duck certain fights, because we don't want a champion like that. You know, as a fan, I'm like, bro, Sugar, like, you're the fucking champ, you're the man, but you know, like, live up to that hype, live up to that name, live up to that brand. And I'm not saying that he doesn't, but you know, stay the champion and be that badass champion, bro. Because we all love, like, Izzy, we all love him. Why? Because he defends the title and he always wants to fight. Who else is another? The Volkanovski is the same way, right? Why we fell in love with Charles and why we want and why he deserves a title shot, right? And he got it. And that's what Aljo needs to do. What Charles is going through, Aljo needs to do the same thing. You know, go get a dub or he gets the rematch right away. But for Sugar, hopefully, like I said, they run it back with Aljo. I don't want him to fight Gervonta. I don't think that fight to me right now would be pointless for both fighters. Gervonta doesn't need to fight Sugar. I mean, there's no value in that. You know, it doesn't give them any values in their careers. The only value that it brings is they get paid a lot of money. For both fighters, they'll just make a lot of money. That's the only value that it brings. You know, because after they fight, it's just whatever. Like, what happened after Conor and Mayweather? Nothing happened. Mayweather's retired. McGregor fucking didn't do shit in the UFC no more. So, like, I just don't want to see that fight. And it's just kind of pointless to me. Now, Sugar Sean O'Malley is in. And Conor McGregor's out. Sean O'Malley's a new face, the new brand, the new whatever you may call it at the UFC. But he is the face of the UFC. I won't be surprised if he's on the fucking face cover of the game of the UFC. Maybe that's why they were trying to rush this fight. I don't know. But Sugar Sean O'Malley's the face of the UFC. You know, for him to do what he did in the Contender Series, work his way up, you know, against not the best fighters, but the knockouts, the performances that he's had, really impressive. And, I mean, knocking people out, dude, in a very clean way, stylistic way. I mean, it's just pretty when he knocks people out, and it's fucking badass. So, and you never hear somebody talk and predict and have that swag to him since Conor, you know. So for Sugar to go in there and to basically go to Boston, where supposedly Aljamain's from, you go in there, all over, I'm sure Boston in the arena, like, people are wearing little afro heads, everything like that. Like, dude, you're a star. You're the biggest, probably, like, pool in the UFC. And we haven't seen nothing like that since Conor. Now, I don't know if he'll ever reach that caliber, but they're definitely trying to push that, you know, for Sugar Sean. And I'm happy. And like I said, I really hope he can live up to the hype, because we've seen Conor, like, go, and then just go all the way down. And hopefully with Sugar, like, he goes up. And maybe, you know, he can stay up there for a while and ride that wave, or he can slowly come down. But, you know, hopefully him now being the face of the UFC and being the biggest name in the UFC, hopefully, like, he can really just entertain us in the UFC and just give us good fights and just be that fucking guy and put out really good performances against the best, like Aljo, like Henry, like Marab, and I think that's probably Cheeto, knock his ass out and get your dub back, you know. So that would be really fucking cool to see from Sugar Sean O'Malley. So let's talk about some drama a little bit. So we got Dillon Danis, Logan Paul fighting, you know. It's a little silly. When I heard about this fight, I was like, this fight's not going to happen. He was supposed to fight KSI, and that shit did not happen. So for him to be talking the way he is and for be posting what he's posting, it makes this fight even more exciting. More makes me want to watch it more because the drama's there, the beef's there. I don't know what really happened. We all know Dillon Danis is a fool on the internet, not really a likable guy for some reason. Just talks a lot of shit and never fights, and he says a lot of crazy stuff, to be honest with you. And like, you don't know if he's telling the truth or not, but if you guys haven't seen, the dude's going crazy posting wild pictures of Logan's fiance, and no disrespect to Logan or his fiance, but I think it's kind of funny. It's fucked up, to be honest with you. I wouldn't want to be Logan or Dillon, but it's just funny because Logan Paul, he's kind of a shitty dude, to be honest with you. He has his thing with there was a podcast that came out that he did with Jake, and he got a lot of shit for it because he was being like a shitty brother, and then he did the scam thing with CryptoZoo, and then he was a shitty friend with or for George, and we kind of lost interest in Logan. Like, we're like, the dude hasn't changed. He's like the same scummy dude, like just whatever, right? So then for this to happen to him, it's it's like, dude, this is a taste of your own medicine. Like, this is what you get for being a shitty person on the internet. I don't know if he really is, but your brother thinks you're pretty shitty. George thinks you're shitty. And now Dillon Danis is doing this to you. So, it's kind of just nice to see someone get a little taste of that, right? So, but it's entertaining. Like I said, I wouldn't want to be Logan Paul, but it's pretty fucking funny. Last thing I want to talk about that I had said a few weeks ago when Bud or Terence Crawford fought is that I would like to see him fight Canelo. Nobody's talking about that. People were like, "There's too small. There's weight class for a reason." Blah 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 blah. And tell me why now Terence Crawford is itching to fight Canelo. Itching. If you saw that podcast, he talked about Canelo the whole time. Talk about how he want to fight Canelo, how it would just fucking get him going. And you can hear it in his voice. You can see it in his eyes. That fight gets him excited. And I hope that Terence Crawford does everything he can to fight Canelo. And I hope that fight at 168, it would make me happy if they fight like 165 or 160 to balance out the weight, and give it a little fairness. But, dude, it would be a close fight. I don't care what people got to say about like Canelo. Like, Canelo's a beast, don't get me wrong, but Terence Crawford's he's a beast too, and he's built different. And that, like I said on the YouTube video in the podcast title, that would be the biggest fight ever, him and Canelo. And for Terence Crawford to go into the Joe Rogan podcast and say that he wants to fight Canelo, that's fucking crazy. Like he's gonna try for it. He's gonna go for it. Clearly he wants that fight, and it's exciting to see him say that, right? Because most boxers are like, no, like they don't go up and jump, like he says, jump 3 weight classes just out the gate to fight this guy. Canelo did it, I want to say, but it was just 2 to fight Bivol. But Terence Crawford said it. He doesn't know anyone who did it 3 weight classes, just boom, like that. Worked the way up, yes, but not just 3 weight classes like that. So I think it's awesome that there's a boxer willing to take those risks, because other boxers are going to see that and they're going to want to take the risk. And if Canelo does it, the whole boxing community is going to see like, damn, Canelo's like willing and down to make these huge fights. Like, we got to make these huge fights, whether it's Javante, Ryan, Shakir, Lomachenko, Devin Haney. Like, they're going to be down to Fimo. They're going to be down to make big fights, because the big dogs, the big fish, the big names are willing to risk their record and put out a fucking good-ass fight and an entertaining fight, and hopefully we get to see that fight in a year. I would love to see that fight. So I had said it. People call me crazy. Terence Crawford is saying it. And yeah, it's crazy. But, dude, it would be fucking badass. So why not? He's chasing greatness, and there's nothing wrong with chasing greatness. Guys, that's the end of this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Peace.